As they did yesterday, a panel of federal officials briefed residents on some of the highlights of the final Environmental Impact Statement, or FEIS, of the Guam military buildup. They again reiterated that they have made every attempt at taking all 10,000 comments on the DEIS into consideration. They reiterated their plans to use Pocket and other government and private-owned lands along Route 15 as a firing range, a plan they promised to execute with minimal impact to surrounding residents, minimal impact to the environment, and minimal impact to a historic ancient Chamorro village that is thousands of years old. They spoke again about their plans to pace the military buildup with Guam's infrastructure. But what they couldn't do is answer most of the questions posed by those in attendance.
Invasive species are already arriving as an unintended consequence of the buildup. 2 new spiders from Korea last week. DOD has paid $2.7 million to federal agencies to write the Micronesian Biosecurity Plan. When will a draft plan be available, and how much will implementation cost?
Anyone from Fish and Wildlife Service here? Okay. Can we give them a mic also? I don't get into the weeds with the progress on where they are with the biosecurity plan. What about Joe? Because Joe's the head of the refuge up here.
Actually, at this point, I haven't seen a lot of the details in the security plan.
Okay.
So it's in the process of being written, and so people are working on it.
The military chose Taragi as the site for the firing range. Why was it taken off the list? Who suggested Pocket? And why not hold off on Pocket like Apra Harbor until all issues are resolved?
I can't tell you exactly why the first one was taken off. I know that we went through the analysis, and some of the possible sites were just too close to the villages. Some had safety issues. Some had environmental issues. And maybe I can ask somebody who was involved in writing that part of the FEIS to see why it was taken off.
You're always doing what you ask.
The vague answers given for some questions and the outright inability to answer others upset many of those in attendance, like Marie Al Young of the We Are Guahan Coalition.
As the Navy and as CEQ actually responded to questions, there were actually more questions raised. I think a lot of people really felt, I know that I personally felt, that government officials were really evasive. They've said things, for example, like they found federal funding. But then for me, the follow-up question to that would be, well, you found federal funding, but what kind of funding is it? For example, is it loans? Is it floated bonds? Is it actual direct funding? So, I think it's a continual process. I think the more that we find out, the more concerned we actually get.
Others, like Jose Grito, said this reminded them of the actions of the federal government when they took lands from locals after World War II.
And all I can say to the Chamorro people of Guam, that we have just finished a post-war replay.
Their inability to answer many of the questions may be due to the fact that most of the federal officials in the panel are relatively new to this buildup. For example, Jackie Fannin-Steele is a newly appointed Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Installations and Environment. She just recently replaced Roger Natsuhara earlier this year. These people are from Obama's administration, and they appear to be uninformed about many of the concerns, issues, and questions that island residents have been posing since the decision for the military move was announced during Bush's administration. Clint Mergel, PNC News.